So welcome everyone to this conversation as part of the Index Festival 2026 online series. I'm very happy to welcome our guests and I just would like to introduce this year's program Takes Power as its point of departure, not as a fixed concept, but as something diffuse, unstable, and often operating at the surface, charged surface, let's say. So rather than offering a totalizing view on power, the program highlights contrasting forms of power, such from childhood fantasies of domination to silent authority, from visible figures like guards and judges to invisible systems like surveillance, technology, and belief structures. So I'm very happy to welcome two artists or two artistic positions that approach these questions from different but I think intersecting angles. So firstly, I would like to welcome artist, filmmaker and poet P.Staff that explores the ways in which history, technology, capitalism and law transform the constitution of contemporary bodies, their tissues, their minds and their social spheres. P will present a very interesting work at Index Festival called Minimum World, and we will discuss it in this session. Secondly, I also would like to welcome very much João Pedro Fonseca and Inês Canicourt from ZABRA, Post-Human Art Research Center that conducts research in media arts encompassing other disciplines such as performing arts, visual arts, and where technology, science, and interspecies dialogue play a crucial role in thinking and contemporary artistic creation and their impact in society at large. So it's very nice to be here talking with you, and I would like to begin by talking with P on the work entitled Minimum World, which is actually both an exhibition, but also a book that was launched in 2025, collating texts written from 2018 until 2025, highlighting also visual and concrete poetics, experiments in typography and linguistics. So maybe starting from a quote from that book, which I think it's very inspiring, and I quote, "Everything has speed, an internal logic, a revolution. There is a minimum world. There is an irreversible world to be in." End of quote. So, in the program of Index, we read that Minimum World can be described as a poem turned hologram, a corridor-like clinical environment, let's say. So how would you describe how it was this to transform or to translate poetry to spatial experience, and how does this shift from text to environment changes the way the work communicates, like between text and spatial experience? I would like.
I mean, like you say, it's a combination of these different forms. There is an intervention through poetry and language, an intervention into the space using light, but the work is also architectural. It contends with architecture very literally. So, as you describe, the work is shown in a long corridor. There's 24 holograms that are spaced down this corridor, and the holograms are like an optical illusion. There are two blades of LEDs that spin so rapidly that they create the illusion in the eye of the viewer of kind of floating in air. I began kind of earnestly including poetry, my own poetry, a sort of poetic language in my work around 2019. And there was kind of a personal genealogy to that. I, for a long time, was making work that I would say was quite academic in tone, quite citational, often was taking pre-existing texts, essays, whatever, and like deconstructing them and sort of transforming them. And I feel like in 2019 I started to get like sick of myself and sick of this like logical or like well-behaved way of working. And I felt the need to like break something in my own practice, and amongst other forms, like poetry and these kind of experiments with language became a way of sort of breaking the disciplinary order that was inherent within my own practice. And I do think that in the art context, we allow text and language to be a disciplining technology, kind of unconsciously. We have like the didactics on the wall, the subtitles in the video, translation, all of these things, and it's a kind of quiet smoothing, a quiet disciplining of the exhibition form itself. And so, I sort of began to allow language to like run rampant through the work. So there are these obsessive tics, these like breaks in order, repetition, this kind of thing. And then I think the form itself that it takes, in this instance, these like flickering, flashing holograms, also breaks some of the logics of art making itself, if that doesn't sound too hubristic. Like, different works are made to be engaged with on different scales and different registers and different affects. And I began more and more to be excited about making works that actively like push you away. The films, texts, videos, whatever, that are like difficult to look at. And for this instance, you're trying to read a poem as it flickers so aggressively in your eyes that you often have to kind of cover your face or look away. And that, for me, became a really like productive, kind of exciting place to try and bring language in. Does that make sense,
No, yeah, that makes absolutely sense. I think it brings me to another question or another things that probably is also related to it, which is the relation between visibility and invisibility also in your work, or the non-readability, the difficulty of reading, or the subversion also of language, of the technology of language that operates also in the work itself, but also, and then bringing maybe eventually another recent work called The Skeleton, which also plays in a way with this X-ray logic of showing what is underneath, what is not visible, in the same way that the holographic fans, they sometimes give you a hint of what is readable, but then complexify the process of reading and of visuality. So this between visible and invisible, what is in the surface, and also how power operates also beneath the surface of marginalized bodies, of queer bodies, of disciplining also how powers operate between the visible and the invisible. So I don't know if this also makes sense to you, like, these layers of...
Yeah, completely. No, it completely does. I mean, I on the one hand, there is this approach that is rigorous in that way, and on the other hand, like, I feel like a neurotic person. I feel like someone, I repeat myself a lot, I fidget a lot in quiet rooms, I like start coughing, and these are the ways that our own bodies like betray us. They're the ways that our own bodies interject into spaces to disrupt them or something. And in some ways I feel the sort of counter position is just that I'm trying to articulate this embodied experience in the work itself. That there is a hiccuping, a nausea, a fever, a static kind of aggravation in the work or something. You know, I had a therapist once point out to me that all of the work I'm making has this obsession with like pulling the guts out of things, and there is something there of always trying to reveal somehow what's on the inside, to kind of like show the guts of the technology, or to show the guts of the subject or something. And there is a strategy there. There is a politics to that, and there is also a neurosis to that. There's a kind of juvenile desire to kind of show everyone my guts also, you know? For a long time, I've worked with what I would maybe call like the technologies of the clinic, kind of X-rays, scanning, heat sensing technologies, different forms of like penetrating a body, that we are often kind of encountering through surveillance or the medical industrial complex, or even in our own homes and our own lives, whether we're wearing an Apple Watch that is monitoring our heartbeat at all times, or the ring that tells us how well we've slept or not slept, you know, or this kind of thing. So I've used a lot of these technologies before, thermal cameras, X-rays, whatever. And yeah, again, I think on the one hand I'm trying to break those technologies, and I'm trying to allow in moments where one's body, one's subjectivity is unruly, unpredictable, unmanageable in some way. The work that you referenced, Skeleton, was made around the same time as Minimum World. At Index, we're not showing them together, we're just showing Minimum World, but they were made in a sort of similar moment. And I do think in both works there's this tension of the question of one's interiority becoming politicized somehow. A kind of colonization, an intrusion, and a sort of inescapable reach into you, into your body, into your subjectivity, into your being, by external forces. In Minimum World, in the text, in the poem of the work, it's a little more personal, it's a little more about feelings, it's a little more hopeless. The work is describing this idea of kind of a irreversible change, a sort of moment where you are silhouetted by the sun, by the politics, by a sort of creeping reality, and you are silhouetted by it, and you will never be able to go back. I was thinking a lot about the experience when you wake up in the morning after something terrible has happened, and there's a kind of split second before you remember, and then there's this sort of waking horror of like, oh, that breakup really did happen, or that person really did die, or that genocide really is ongoing, and you wake up and there's a moment where it sinks and it hits, right? That's a really intimate, personal experience. The film Skeleton that you referenced, I was invited by a museum to make a work. I asked them if I could use their funds, their money, to buy a human skeleton, which is a wild process. It's not as difficult as you would think that it would be to buy human remains, to buy a human skeleton. And at the same time, buying a skeleton kind of engages us in all of the same biopolitics and necropolitics that we experience before death. It is sexed, it is racialized, it is part of a global free market of which we're all kind of victims, you know? Yeah. So I bought the human skeleton and I simply just filmed it one bone at a time. And the work kind of lapses in and out of legibility. There are stretches where the bones are not recognizable really as anything at all. They look like little lumps of carbon. And then suddenly a rib or a femur, or most impactfully a skull appears. And suddenly you're kind of hit with this wave, or at least I am, hit with this wave of recognition that it's a person. It has a provenance, it has an experience, it has a politics that is embedded into this material, even though this material in some ways is completely generic. I find skeletons endlessly fascinating in that way. I can walk through a museum and not register a skeleton really as anything meaningful. I went to an art school that had a human skeleton that we used for study. At the same time, I think if I were ever to see my own bones, I think I would have some deep ontological crisis. And if I were to see a skeleton on the side of the road, I would be in complete horror. And so there's this, again, it's this coming back to this thing of these multiple registers that in some ways we all move through all the time. And by simply drawing attention to it, we can be deeply affected or something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it brings again all these layers that we've been talking about: legibility, non-legibility, the visible, the invisible, technology, and also, as you spoke, all the pharmacopornographic regime that also intervenes, penetrates, and contaminates, and somehow controls also. And this also brings us to, Minimum World was also presented in another show, this show that at the Bonner Kunstverein in Germany called Penetration, where the skeleton is and also other works are. And just maybe to wrap up, two questions that you also mentioned, architecture in a way, site specificity, doing how the way you also propose environment installations, not only because you said that somehow you would like to make the inside visible, your own guts visible, but also your installation have a huge sensorial impact on the visitor, on the spectator, and it also plays the other way around. How do you operate with the senses to propose and to produce or to raise awareness about body politics, biopolitics, and also the necropolitics that you just mentioned. Like the power. I'm thinking about lights, color, all these layers of sensorial perception.
You know, I mean, one of the sort of things that I would preface my answer with is that desire is inherently badly behaved, right? And so as much as these works are talking about politics and power and exposure and violence, there's an aspect of it where I'm like, it's kind of fun though, right? Or it's kind of sexy. Like maybe my exposure can be erotic. Maybe my surveillance, if I'm being watched through the webcam, if I'm being surveilled by the government, if I'm being objectified by someone on the street, the context of exhibition making is one where I get to kind of revel in the disorder of that. And so the works that you're describing, teeter constantly or come down this sharp line between a kind of aggression and pleasure. I'm always trying to sort of simulate this experience of like, oh, I don't know if I like this, but I'm compelled by it. I can't stop both moving towards it and away from it simultaneously. I often try to find this emotional place in the work of like, I'm coming up on a drug and I don't know if my body can handle it. I don't know if I can tolerate this experience, not morally, not ethically, but really in an embodied way. Like, how long can I hang out in this space? Because I do really think that that's where a kind of radical experience can take place. And so, to your point, you know, I began to use increasingly these subtle architectures in an institution, in a gallery, in a museum. And so these fundamental qualities, like light is one of the most basic things that we spend all of our time thinking and talking about, particularly in the context of exhibition making. And so the first time I ever really made an intervention in that was just to turn the lights up too bright in a room, to create a moment where you can't quite escape it bearing down on you. That these basic qualities of the exhibition, the air, the light, the spatial organizing can become an antagonist in its own right. And so, like I said a second ago, I think I sometimes am making like a provocation. I'm like asking you to walk down this 50-foot hallway where you are being aggressed by the work, but that there could be something fun about it, that it radically shifts depending on if you came alone or with a group of friends, if it's the opening. You know, the first time we showed Minimum World, we had all experienced it during installation, like alone or just two of us, and it's scary. Like these lights come flashing down the hallway towards you, they're kind of sparking on either side of you, and you feel aggressed, like I said. Suddenly at the opening, it felt like a nightclub. It felt kind of sexy. It felt like the strobing of a party. And I guess that's what I mean about this like ambivalence. It's, you know, it's like the porno fantasy of the doctor's examination, or the cop that ties your hands behind your back or something. Like it's the art making allows me to kind of interrogate that ambivalence as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and to place the visitor also in that ambiguity, I would say. So then, passing now to Zabra and to João Pedro and to Inês Canicur, you will also present a performance at Index, which will premiere. That you were on residence. So it's just being done or getting. So the title is very suggestive. It's called Jeff Thiel Musk. So there's irony and play here. And would you like to explain a bit about where does this title comes from, and also a bit about the performance?
Okay. So where to start? Maybe I'll start with a question that me and João think in the beginning of the project and start developing this concept. And maybe the future is the most powerful marketing strategy of our time, you know. I mean, today we are constantly listening stories about Mars, about artificial intelligence, beauty promises, immortality. But the things we are interested in these themes, it's because they are not just technological projects, they are narratives. And these narratives shape power. So we have like these 2-3 billionaires saying to us what progress is and what future looks like. And this has a big social impact in the way that we imagine, the way we desire, we build our beliefs, the idea of the future. And that's a lot of power and very violent. So our project starts from there. And after that, we try to translate this in something, because normally we create like hybrid devices, and we like to think in hybrid ecosystems with human bodies, but we also like to think in technological bodies with agency. So we designed this fictional figure called Jeff T.L. Musk, and comes from merging three figures: Jeff Bezos, Amazon Blue Origin founder, Peter Thiel, PayPal co-founder, and one of the first investors on Facebook, and of course the most famous one, Elon Musk, Tesla CEO, the crazy project SpaceX, the Neuralink project to in Twitter, of course. And the idea was collapsing these figures into one single entity and create something that feels really familiar but also slightly disturbing. And so it's like a kind of techno-prophet, corporate oracle, or a branded vision of the future. And we also decided to use a registered trademark symbol to bring more this idea of the future itself as something honed and packaged, sold. So this was the starting point. In this specific project, we were not so much interested in developing a specific technology, because normally we really like to do that. But this time we were interested in bringing these teams to the table, think how the future is narrated and who gets to narrate it. These speculative stories create desire, demand belief, and in that sense, speculation is not neutral. It is a form of power. So the promise of the future can function as a mechanism of control, because it keeps us oriented toward what is coming instead of questioning what is happening now. Like when we think about colonizing Mars, we are thinking leaving our planet, but maybe it's more interesting to think what can we do now about our planet. So basically we bring this idea to this performance / installation / interspecies ecosystem. And of course we explore this theme with a lot of irony and exaggeration. I think it's the most comic piece that we have. We normally do like very minimal in terms of language. So I think it's really interesting the path that we did. And that's it. We can see this character that embodies this hybrid figure, like part CEO, part visionary, or like a cult leader, talking and imagine with their friends, that machine friends. And the language borrows from corporate speech, tech optimism, and sometimes even religious tones, because the line between innovation and belief today it's becoming increasingly blurred. For example, like colonizing Mars, it's presented as a technical goal, but it also requires belief. The belief that this future is necessary, inevitable, and desirable. Or in the tech culture, belief in artificial intelligence has already changed how companies operate, like automating decisions, restructuring jobs, and investing heavily before fully understanding the ethical and moral consequences of it. So I think that's the beginning of this project that we are building.
João Pedro, would you like to add something?
I think everything already said, Karin Kur. I think these elites defines what kind of healthcare, food, and technology we access through their huge investments, and somehow this is kind of new slavery, but very occult, and they shape the world. They shape the world and society, and we don't know how to see. Or in general, the people don't see where the power is concentrated. So that decisions have a global impact from digital infrastructures and logics networks to artificial systems and space exploration, like Karin Kur said, are very concentrated in a small number of companies and individuals. And this concentration shifts the traditional axis of government, transferring decision-making power from public and institutional spaces to highly capitalized private structures. And this kind of result is like a form of technopolitical power that operates with limited transparency and minimal democracy, oversight, producing massive effects on everyday life. And this is a very paradox thing, because how they show us the future, they are privatization the future too. So the future belongs to them. And the future ceases to be an open collective horizon and becomes a territory of investment and ownership. And we need to have more consciousness about this. And I have very big questions of what belong these projections, which belong these futures, and who is included to them. If only work to some very few people, very few elites, of everyone in the world can go with them too. So we're trying to, with this performance or creation, trying to understand who define the future and whose behalf, to understand who is part or not of this.
It's very interesting, how you put it, that this future is advertised or defended already as a commodity, already in the form of desire, but a desire that it's going to be fetishized to become a commodity, so that people would desire that future. I wonder if this hybrid creature that your performance will present us, is it also kind of between human and non-human, or transhuman, or because I think that you're also very much interested in this interspecies relation between the human and technology, the impact that technology can also have in augmented capabilities, etc. And also in other works that you explored, like Carn X, this performance that you presented last year in 2025, where we see human, a performer in dialogue with AI, and bridging this technology and the human. And I'm just wondering if this creature that you propose, what kind of creature it is, what kind of hybrid creature also.
I think that there is a big difference between the last creation that we did. It was Karn to this because Karn is more post-human. It's more like an human identity, relational that depends of the systems like technological, biological, ecological, and trying to is a more a post-human approach, and this one is more a transhumanism approach, like the body itself doesn't matter, like John Till believes in immortality, and for him the body is only an object that the mind is there, and we're trying to reflect something, a creature that will have a body, and maybe we will be our bodies to receive the data and all the digital creature that we will conceive in a computer, and like the more important thing or that we want to express is everything becomes very digitalized, and we will use the mediums that is more digital, a lot of digital, like our works, and try not such biological, because in Carn we worked with SCOBY that belongs to kombucha, colonize of bacteria, and other things that are interactive, and the body already have agency too, can transform and create environments, different environments in space on the performance. Here, the body or the performance don't have this kind of action, don't influence the digital, is other way around. The digital influence the body. And that way we want to give a sensation of more transhumanism, something that doesn't exist yet, but is there, or the prototype is there.
So in some way there's also a play between seduction and irony about the future. I wonder, and now bringing P into dialogue here, do you think, P, that would you say that your work also reflects on futurability, how the future, how to envision the future, or how to envision the power and power structures or technological structures underneath or in relation with the present, or do you also somehow project upcoming futures or?
God, I really don't know. I think I'm quite sort of trapped in the present, you know? Like I don't know. I fear if I was making something of the future, it would be sort of deeply nihilistic, you know? But I like an imagining of the future that is not tethered to our sort of like current ideas of what is good for society or something, you know? I think maybe similar to these guys, I would, as much as my work is sort of set in this current embodied experience, if I were to try to imagine the future or work with the future, I would probably want to disavow humanity entirely, you know, to sort of reject our preoccupations and conceptions of what is good and what is right, you know.
So going back also to this hybrid figure, I wonder if do you see in your performance will there be any how the spectator will interact with the, is there interaction or is more optical experience, sound experience? I'm just wondering, trying to envision the performance.
So I think as Joan was explaining, we normally we don't like too much this transhumanism idea. We think it's a bit like it's too much, because I think in thinking in present, we need to think in our bodies also, but we can think in our bodies in a more expansive, not expensive.
Expanded, yeah.
So we really
can be expensive.
and they're expensive too. But we like to create this this when we talk in interspecies dialogue, it's because we don't like to use technology just as a tool, but as an agent, as a body too. But in this performance, maybe we can see we will see and feel this character, sometimes figured in the human body, sometimes in the space, sometimes maybe in the light. So, and we are just trying to bring more this idea, more this Elon Musk idea of with Neuralink to put our minds in a simple machine. So we will see the character will travel for all the equipment, but also in our bodies. Of course, we will not use our faces, but we will use some sensors. We are using also software as touch designer, video projection to create this figure. But yeah, we will see mostly a character occupying all the physical bodies present in the space. I don't know if maybe it's a bit abstract, but when you see it, you say, oh, it's that. Okay, it's easy.
But it's interesting that also leaves some space for imagination and for speculation. So I think that we are recording this like 1 month ahead of the presentation of the opening of Index. So I think people will be very excited also to see so the two very different artistic positions that somehow think about technology that is sold out and advertised as the new future, the new desire that will bring eventually human emancipation, extra planetary colonization, I don't know, etc., etc. And how this builds up also this desire and fetishization about this kind of futurability. And in another way, minimum world, the title itself brings us to a different kind of experience, I think, and I can picture that in a very different perspective, but also bringing layers of where technology and the body meet in a very experiential and sensorial way also, like with holograms and also the flashlights and how these very different performance and artworks will also bring the spectator into deep reflections about how embodied we are in technological systems of power, and how they impact so much from life to death, from biopolitics to necropolitics. So I'm very, very looking forward to see these two performances or these two artworks, and I would like to thank you very much for this conversation. It was really illuminating, and yes, I hope that everyone that is listening to us will also have a huge desire to go to Braga and see the Index Bienal. So thank you so much, Pi, Inês, and João Pedro. And hope to see you
in Braga.
We see each other in Braga. Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.